Oh, hey there. This is Jeanette Tamayo again, and I will be showing you from mock-up to completed project of Simplicity 8941. I don't really have any footage of cutting out the mock-up, but I really want to talk about these sleeves. It looks like I have a pointy dagger hiding in my sleeve, and I don't know if it's because I'm a newbie to historical costumes, but I went ahead and cut out a more modern sleeve pattern. So here you can see me marking a Sharpie right where the crease of my elbow is, and then I added 2 parallel lines for that crease, and then I just did a tiny little dart where those lines are. Tried on the mock-up, and it looks really good. So we're good to go, and we're going to cut out of the actual fabric that I chose for the robe. And here you can see me just being deliberate in placing the center back panel of the bodice to have the flower pattern just smack dab in the center. And here I'm pinning the other pieces of the bodice to the robe fabric. And then I'm cutting the main portion of the bodice, and I added a few inches to the front just to allow for seam allowance on the robe when I go ahead and attach the lining to the bodice. Alright, so this is the point where I'm going to join the paneling pieces on the back portion of the bodice. And the thing that I can just suggest is to go ahead and go slowly, and basically what you're just doing is you're sort of just finessing the seam along the curve, and it's not too bad to go ahead and do this, mainly because there's a bit of a bias cut, so the fabric has a bit of give, and it allows for pinning to be a bit easier. So while I go ahead and start pinning the other curve of the bodice, I wanted to go ahead and mention in the completed robe video, the fabric I chose for the robe is a lightweight cotton with an Indian block print. And again, it needs to be recognized that I'm not the only person who worked on this robe. Credit does need to be given also to the Indian artisans that printed this beautiful fabric. So I went ahead, sewed all the curves on the bodice, went ahead and trimmed with my pinking scissors along the curves. And then now I'm using my thread cutting scissors to just put in a small snippet, like about every inch or so along the curve. This just allows for when I go ahead and iron and press that the curves will go ahead and look nice and smooth like they do here. And this is just the point I'm going ahead and laying out the self fabric pieces on the cotton muslin lining that I was mentioning earlier. And then sewing it up. And then at this point, I'm just going ahead and trimming the seam allowances on the bodice section. I went ahead and attached the lining to the main robe fabric. And I gotta say that this is a pretty easy project. I feel like it's definitely would be great for like a beginner costumer to do. There's just a couple points that might be just a little tricky, but I think it's possible. The The things that are great about this robe is you'll figure out how to put in sleeves into a bodice. Things that make it easy is that there isn't any sort of buttonholes or zippers or eyelets or anything that you need to really worry about in this piece. So would highly suggest this pattern. I think it came along really easy. I'm pretty sure if I wasn't going ahead and filming some of the steps of this pattern, that I think I could have done this in a weekend. Totally suggest people checking out this pattern. So now at this point, I'm just going ahead and starting the train part of the garment, which is my favorite part. So I went ahead, sewed up everything. And then I called it good. And then this is a beautiful pink polyester crepe-like fabric that I found at the thrift store. At this point, I did not want to go ahead and go with store-bought bias. So I made my own bias tape, and this is actually the very first time that I made bias tape. I've been sewing for quite some time. I've been sewing for 12 to 15 years or so, and this is actually the first time I've ever made my own bias binding. I've just never really had to. Patterns that I've had never really called for it, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. It is rough around the edges, but you know what? I did not have a rotary cutter and did not feel like spending money, more money, to go ahead and buy this tool. If you're making bias binding, I totally suggest you using a rotary cutter and a rotary cutter mat for that. It'll come out a lot smoother. So I am now attaching the bias tape to the train. And yes, I do have a towel on my head because I washed my hair. You know what? This is real life. You are in my home, and I'm showing you how I sew in my home in real life. So you're going to see things like that in this channel. But okay, so yes, pinning the bias binding to the train, you just kind of have to finesse it a little bit. Just be patient. This pattern didn't call for bias binding like this. It's just that in many of the examples of open robes that I've seen, they have this beautiful little trim around the robe. I love that detail, so I wanted to go ahead and incorporate it in this robe. Highly suggest just going slowly when you sew the bias binding to get a really nice top stitch. And then this is the section where I go ahead and gather the train. I added 3 rows of gathering or basting stitches, and actually my top one was the stitching length was a little too short. Make sure that all the stitching lengths for all 3 rows of your gathers are on the longest setting. Having it on the longest setting is appropriate for the gather, so it'll make your job a lot easier. And all you do is you either separate the top threads from the bottom ones, and then you just figure out which ones you're going to pull. Are you going to pull all the bottom ones, or are you going to pull all the top ones? It doesn't work to pull both bottom and top at the same time. So just letting you know if you are new to the gathering game. And I went ahead, gathered it all, and now it's pinned to the bodice part. And that was the last step, and this is the completed robe, and I love it a lot. It came out the way I wanted. I didn't add any sort of snaps or hook and eyes for the closure. For right now, I'm just using straight pins to go ahead and close it, and it seems good for now. The thing I'm debating is adding some bias to the top bodice portion in the front and along the back. I still haven't decided if I still want to do that or not, but hey, let me know in the comments if you think I should add some bias binding to that section, and I'd love to hear from you. And that is the robe. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Again, it does let me know that real humans are watching and that I'm not just talking into the void. Bye.